So fellas, we've just had Manel Kape versus Almabayev, resulting in Manel Kape chasing after Almabayev for dear life, and the trend of cards being bad on paper but performing really well. Stick true with this card. I thought this was a really good fight night card despite being terrible on paper. We're going to be going through every fight, but like I said, I thought it was a good fight night. Starting off with Charles Johnson versus Ramazam Temirov. Yeah, I was confused why this was the first fight on the card on paper anyway. I mean, you've got ranked Charles Johnson versus this big lightweight flyweight prospect. Ramazam Temirov gets the job done by a close decision. I thought Temirov was going to win by knockout. That's usually what he wins by, but he got the decision win over Charles Johnson. It was a decent fight. Charles Johnson, he had a very high output, but it wasn't really outlanding Temirov. In the last round, Temirov was gassed. Charles Johnson was unloading on him. My main takeaways is that Charles, he doesn't have the output. It must be frustrating to be a coach, a cornerman of Charles Johnson, because the guy's output is always there. He's always in your face, backing you up, but he doesn't have the output to matching up. I know it's dangerous when you're facing a guy like Temirov who packs a punch, but I must say, Temirov might be the most dangerous one-round fighter in the flyweight division. This guy, if you look at his record, so many early knockouts, so many big shots landed on Charles Johnson. At least one of them should have been scored a knockdown, because this guy's just this, he's tiny for the flyweight division as well. He's so compact and he hits like an absolute truck. There's Ramazam Temirov mixing it up with boxing and spinning back kicks. But I will say, he does gas out very early. Like that, halfway through the second round, his gas tank was gone. But he's a very dangerous one-round fighter. I can definitely see him scoring a lot of first-round knockouts in the UFC. It was a close fight because of that third round. But Charles Johnson, I didn't really understand the fight IQ. You know, there was a minute left. He was in his corner, backing Temirov against the cage, and his corner were telling him, unloading him. There's a minute left. You know, go for the finish, and he's clinching with Temirov. I didn't really understand the fight IQ, but it was a close fight. Temirov is somebody to look out for in the flyweight division. I said it in his UFC debut. I picked him to win this fight because of it. Now, even though he made it closer than I expected, I mean, you face in a ranked fighter in your second fight in the UFC, and Charles Johnson was on a 4-fight winning streak. I think Charles Johnson deserves to stay ranked. I think you give Temirov that number 12 spot and keep Charles Johnson in the top 15 because it was a close fight. I'd like to see Charles Johnson maybe against like a Clayton Carpenter or some other up-and-coming flyweight. And for Ramazam Temirov, definitely somebody in the top 10 next. Again, if you can sort his gas tank out and maybe his grappling, there's a few questions about his grappling because we haven't really seen it tested in the UFC, but he's a dangerous one-round fighter. I thought it was a decent fight. Charles Johnson's one of my favourites in the flyweight division, especially for the activity that he's had. And for Ramazam Temirov, a good flyweight prospect to look out for. I'm not saying he's the next big thing, but very dangerous. Got the win if he sorts his gas tank out. And to be fair, you can't blame him for having a bad gas tank when he's facing Charles Johnson, who's putting the pressure on him like that. But either way, good fight and good win for Ramazam Temirov. Then we had Andrea Lee versus JJ Aldrich. It's just JJ Aldrich. I mean, what do you want me to say about this fight? It's classic women MMA. There's absolutely nothing notable. You've got a woman who's 0-5 against no one knows who is JJ Aldrich. No one cares. It was a boring fight. It was basically a spar for 15 minutes straight. How is Andrea Lee even in the UFC? 6 straight losses now she's had. 6. I mean, you're going to cut Rosenstrike for losing to bloody Pavlovich, and you're keeping Andrea Lee, who's not even ranked in women MMA, has boring fights, and he's on a 5-fight, now a 6-fight losing streak. And maybe by Monday she might still have a UFC contract. She needs to be cut immediately if she hasn't retired already. I mean, what do you want me to say? Good performance by JJ Aldrich because she beat somebody who was 0-5. It was a boring fight. It was a glorified sparring session. There's nothing notable to come from this fight. JJ Aldrich landed a significant strike against Andrea Lee and dropped her at one point in the fight. There was a couple of times when Andrea Lee took JJ Aldrich down. Listen, this is the worst fight on the card, and it's a bad look for women MMA. You know, apart from maybe Zhang Weili and Wang Kong and some of the... let Chinese and Asian women MMA fighters in the UFC, because those are the ones that put on good fights. You know, I forgot her name. I think it was... Yeah, I forgot her name. I'm not even going to try and butcher the name, but that woman who scored that brutal knockout on Road to the UFC... No, UFC Macau. Bring her in the UFC. Zhang Weili, Wang Kong, but... You know, JJ Aldrich versus Andrea Lee, useless fight, nothing to talk about. Then we had Lucas Almeida versus Danny Silva. This was where the card slowly started to heat up. This is where the beginning of the heating of the card started. We had Danny Silva win a decision. I'm not going to say this was an absolute banger. I thought Danny Silva was winning the fight for the majority of it, but then they showed the significant strikes, and I must have been confused by optics because it wasn't as dominant as I thought. Silva won a close decision. It was a close fight, but I did think Silva took it because his boxing looked really crisp. I do think Danny Silva's somebody to look out for. He has really nice striking, defensively very sound. He's kind of like a pressure boxer with defensively sound, and he was always in the face of Lucas Almeida. And like I said, I thought he was dominating him the first 2 rounds, but according to the significant strikes statistics, he wasn't doing that, which is surprising. But it was a decent fight. Lucas Almeida fired back in the third and was landing the significant strikes over Danny Silva, won the third round, but I did think it was a 29-28 to Danny Silva. Really good boxer. And Lucas Almeida, he's dangerous, but I just didn't really understand the game plan. It was almost like survive for 2 rounds and then go at him in the third. Again, I think if Danny Silva can maybe work on his gas tank a little bit, not that he's got a terrible gas tank, but he, like I said, he started to fade in that third round. I think he'd be a good prospect because he has got decent wrestling. He took down Lucas Almeida at some point in the fight, and obviously he's known for his slick boxing skills, and I think he's 2-0 in the UFC now, so good win for Danny Silva over Lucas Almeida. And this is where the fight card started to heat up. This is where we started to get, you know, the absolute scraps that made this card what it was, because so far the card was terrible. But then we had Chepe Mariscal versus Ricardo Ramos, and this is where the card started to heat up. Where it was a back and forth fight. It was a very crafty fight, I think is how you can describe it, where Mariscal, as he should, won a very, very impressive decision win. And I feel like he's been going under the radar as Mariscal in the featherweight division. I honestly don't mind him getting somebody in the rankings next. I know we had a different featherweight fight on this card, which I'm going to get into, but Chepe Mariscal, I think he's on, what, a 6-fight winning streak now in the UFC, and most of his losses outside the UFC to the likes of, you know, what's his name, Bryce Mitchell and some other notable names. It was a dogfight. They both had their moments. Ricardo Ramos was, you know, throwing a spinning attack every 20 seconds. Chepe Mariscal was mixing it up with the judo throws and then just walking forward and absolutely, you know, just trying to box the head off of Ricardo Ramos. It was an amazing performance from Mariscal, though. He's got that pressuring high output pace for 15 minutes straight. Gas tank looked amazing, and he had that, you know, that fun style whilst dominating at the same time. It was a dominant performance from Chepe Mariscal. He's a big 145 prospect. He's been going under the radar, and he's just a tough guy. You clinch with him. He's always looking to do something, is Chepe Mariscal. He's always looking to be busy. You want to get in the clinch with him, he's going to try and trip you up. Even if you're a jiu-jitsu guy like Ricardo Ramos, he's going to look for submissions. He's not scared to go to the ground. And obviously on the feet, he's this walk forward pressure boxer, and he kind of just pieced up Ricardo Ramos for 15 minutes straight. Ricardo Ramos was still in the fight. In that last round, he was trying to fire back against Mariscal, you know, in the last 10 seconds, throwing a front kick to the face. And there were a couple times in the fight where I did think Chepe Mariscal was in danger, like when he had in that standing guillotine and when he landed a couple of big shots. But either way, Mariscal, somebody to look out for in the featherweight division. Big 145 prospect that's going under the radar. And you know what? If you want to give him a Calvin Kattar next, give him a Calvin Kattar. If we see him against a Dan Ige next, we see him against a Dan Ige. I don't mind it. So, yeah, let's see Chepe Mariscal in the rankings. This was a really good performance, and it was a really good fight as well. And then we had Austen Lane versus Mario Pinto, the first finishes of the card to first finish of the card to open up this. They'll open up the main card. We're already on the main card. There was only, I think, 10 fights on this entire card as well, so it might be a bit of a quick breakdown. But we had Austen Lane against Mario Pinto. Austen Lane looked good in the first round. He was winning that first round, definitely a 10-9. And then Mario Pinto out of nowhere comes back with a 1-2 combination and brutally knocks out Austen Lane for the most brutal finish of the card. I think this was one of the only finishes on the card. But yeah, also Mario Pinto, KO, welcome to the UFC. And to be honest, welcome to the top 15, because we're talking about the heavyweight division here. Brutal knockout by Mario Pinto. Like I said, Pinto didn't look amazing. Like, Austen Lane was winning that first round, both in the stand-up department and in the grappling. And then in the second round, they were both just kind of trading with each other. In fact, Austen Lane actually dropped Mario Pinto at some point in the fight. Pinto decided he'd had enough and just went for the 1-2 and knocked out Austen Lane. But he's definitely a heavyweight to look out for, is Mario Pinto. You know, somewhat athletic, tall, powerful striker. Not on Ngannou levels of power, not like one-shot done power. But he's kind of got a mix of everything, is Mario Pinto. I think he can definitely make it into the top 15. Fuck it, do him versus Tuivasa. We're talking about the heavyweight division here. Talishan Teixeira beat Justin Tafa and got in the top 15. Mario Pinto beat Austen Lane. Get him in the top 15 too. Mario Pinto versus Tuivasa, because he would beat Tuivasa, and it gets him in the top 10. And by the way, I thought this guy was going to come in with some sort of broken English accent. Like, he's got the Portuguese flag to his name. I've never heard him speak in any interviews. I don't know. And then he started speaking on the Octagon interview, and he had this thick London accent. This guy's from the UK. Represent the UK. I don't know who this guy's PR team is, but if he had an England flag next to him there, and next to his name, there'd be 10 times more people going for Mario Pinto and trying to get behind him and big him up if he was from England. So I think you should get that England flag next to him. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to expand, you know, the British heavyweight roster, but let's be honest, Brits do have. I'm calling him a Brit because he is British. He trains out of London. He's been there for ages. He's literally got no broken English. He's got a London accent. accent, he's British. But the UK, we're taking over the heavyweight division. We've got Tom Aspinall, Mick Parkin, Mario Pinto, who's going to be in the top 15 by Tuesday. Look over to heavyweight, you've got Tyson Fury. Fuck it, do Mario Pinto versus Tom Aspinall, the UFC's equivalent of Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. Anyway, back to the fight. Yeah, a brutal KO by Mario Pinto. Get him in the top 10 or at least the top 15 of the heavyweight division. Don't give him Martin Bedai or some unranked heavyweight that has no name value. Don't give him Rebellis Despain treatment. And for Austen Lane, I know he's lost a majority of his UFC fights, but he didn't look terrible in this fight. Maybe the UFC are going to cut Austen Lane, but I feel like he's one of the better unranked heavyweights on the roster. You know, if you're going to keep Justin Tafa and Junior Tafa in the UFC, at least keep Austen Lane, you know what I mean? I know Austen Lane lost to Justin Tafa, but still. Anyway, good performance by Mario Pinto. Brutal KO, first finish of the card. And yeah, I'm excited to see what he does in the heavyweight division. I don't think he could become like a top contender of the division. You know, it's not like a Sergey Pavlovich early days where he's running through everybody, but I think he's got potential, and I want to see what he does next. For good win for the British. And talking of the British, the Brits were beating the Americans tonight. Sam Patterson not only has the underdog wins, but knocks out the guy who everybody thought was going to knock out Sam Patterson in Danny Barlow with a first round KO to Sam Patterson. Yeah, this is probably the least expected outcome I've had in a while. Sam Patterson, this BJJ guy who has very kind of mid stand-up against this undefeated striker in Danny Barlow, and Sam Patterson knocks him out in the first, getting the Brits in the winning column again. 2-0 for the Brits. Since when did Patterson have KO power? This guy's never looked good on the feet in any of his fights. He gets KO'd in his UFC debut against Yanal Ashmouz brutally. Second fight, takes the fight to the mat immediately. And then he faces Kiefer Crosby, who's one of the worst in the UFC, gets caught. And now he, you know, knocks out Danny Barlow. Danny Barlow gets him against the cage, goes for a combination. Sam Patterson counters, wobbles Danny Barlow, then drops him, gets him against the cage, and then fucking, you know, punches him and finishes him. I mean, what else you want me to say? Good win from Sam Patterson. 3 fights in the UFC, well, 3 fights in a row now, 3 finishes. I think all of them in the very first round as well. So Sam Patterson, I used to think this guy was a victim. When he got knocked out by Yanal Ashmouz, I thought, okay, this guy might be, you know, he might be from the UK. I might want to rally behind him, but he's a bit of a victim. But maybe not. Maybe he's a bit of a prospect in the welterweight division. Chinny BJJ guy, he knocks out a dangerous striker, never saw it coming, but that's a good win from Sam Patterson. It's going to improve his confidence. You know, he's just got a knockout win, he's got really good jiu-jitsu, and I think he's only like, I never thought I'd say this, but Sam Patterson, he's a win or 2 away from the rankings. If he can get another finish over, I don't know, like an Alex Morono or a Daniel Rodriguez or somebody close to the rankings, he's probably going to be ranked in the welterweight division very soon, which I never thought I'd expect to see. So good win from Sam Patterson, getting the KO win, upsetting everybody, getting rid of the undefeated Danny Barlow, who kind of got fraud-checked in this fight, let's be honest. I already said he was one of the worst undefeated fighters before. He never really had that hype around him. I picked him to win because I was never really bought on the hype of Sam Patterson. But there we go. Sam Patterson finishes Danny Barlow with a first-round KO. That's the UFC for you. Then we had William Gomis versus Hyder Amil, another really good fight where they were just pressuring each other the entire fight. Mainly from Hyder Amil, didn't really let William Gomis use his range, had the perfect game plan and got the decision win over William Gomis. Another underdog win. What a fight this was though. Absolute dog fight. They were both just throwing everything in the kitchen sink. You know, Hyder Amil was pressuring William Gomis. William Gomis was firing back, had his moments, really good clinch work, but the majority of the fight was Hyder Amil pressuring William Gomis and just unloading on the feet when he was against the cage. And it was a good game plan. Didn't strike at range with William Gomis, which I thought would happen where William Gomis would win. And I've always said, listen, I'm not going to try and kick him while he's down, and after they've had a fight like that, I'm not going to disrespect William Gomis. But I heard a lot of people saying, you know, they're behind the hype of William Gomis and he's, you know, this really good featherweight prospect. I was never bought on the hype of William Gomis. He shouldn't have beaten you, Anderson Brito. He had a very close fight in his UFC debut, and apart from that, he only really beat Cans. So I was never really bought on the hype of Gomis, and now he's fought Hyder Amil as a massive favourite, lost to him. Again, I'm going to tune into William Gomis. He's a fun, rangy striker. Well, he's not usually fun, but he was fun in this fight. But he was never top 15 worthy. Massive win for Hyder Amil. I think he's, 11-0 now, undefeated, a couple of wins in the UFC, beat William Gomis. He called for somebody in the top 15. Like I said earlier, with Chepe Mariscal, I don't mind him getting somebody in the top 15. If you give him a Calvin Kattar or a Danny Ige, I'm not mad at that. Or maybe even like an Edson. Oh, that's the different division, isn't it? Edson Barboza. Maybe even if you give him like an Edson Barboza, and then after he beats Barboza, you give him somebody in like the top 10. I don't mind, but massive win for Hyder Amil on a main card of a fight night against a guy who everyone thought was going to beat you, and you had a performance like that, a back and forth fun fight, really good fight, really good performance by Hyder Amil. And then we had the featured fight. Now, I thought the fights couldn't get any better than what we've seen already, but I was dumb to think that the Fight of the Year winner for 2024 wouldn't put that performance on. Nasrat Haqparast beat Esteban Ribovics in an absolute dogfight. I'm not mad at the decision. I thought Haqparast won 2 rounds to 1, and he got the decision win. But yeah, this is another Fight of the Year. This has probably been the best fight of 25 so far. And what a coincidence, it involves the #1 candidate for the 2024 Fight of the Year, #1 contender in Esteban Ribovics. That guy is a walking performance bonus. They better give this guy some sort of bonus after this fight for Esteban Ribovics, because that it was an amazing performance from both of them. Both lads just throwing bombs every second of the fight. You couldn't find a single period of 10 seconds in this fight where they weren't throwing a strike. Nasrat Haqparast looked really good. He looked really crisp with his striking. Esteban Ribovics was just pressuring him the entire fight, kind of landing on him, and then Nasrat Haqparast would land with the 1-2, the straight shots, and just fire back. As the fight progressed, that's when Esteban Ribovics started to have success. He landed a massive knee in the 3rd round, cut at Nasrat open, and then just started to unload on him a little bit. But this was a really good performance from Haqparast. I think he's on like a 6-fight winning streak now. He's been tearing up these guys. Amazing win. He called out Hanato Moicano. Be easy there, buddy. You know what I mean? Let's keep it easy. You know, you beat Esteban Ribovics, now you want Moicano. You suddenly want to get a top 10 fighter. You know, hold your horses. You lost to Dan Hooker and Bobby Green, but no. Good win for Nasrat Haqparast. I don't mind him getting somebody in the top. The problem with the lightweight division is it's such a stacked division that you can't just give everybody somebody in the top 15. Like, I still think Yoel Alvarez and Fares Ziam are the front runners of, you know, people who deserve a fight in the top 15. I think for Haqparast, him versus like a Rumbetsky has another potential to be Fight of the Year contender. And then if he beats Rumbetsky, give him maybe Moicano or whatever. But either way, really good fight from both of them. Non-stop, just scrapping. Nasrat Haqparast for the majority of the fight was outlanded and just landing bombs on Ribovics, but Ribovics would land back every now and then, showing that he's still in the fight and was pressuring Haqparast. I mean, what more could you want from a fight? Great performance. I hope they win a bonus. And this was, like I said, probably one of the best fights we've had in 2025 so far. I'm trying to think. I can't think of a single fight we've had in 2025 that can really live up to Haqparast versus Ribovics. So, yeah, really good performance. Good win from Haqparast. Big winning streak. Get him somebody close to the top 15. And for Ribovics, he would come back from this. Do you know what I mean? It was a close fight. Some people do think Ribovics won, so he shouldn't be ashamed of this. Maybe like a Ribovics versus... I'm not sure. Oh my gosh, Terence. Oh, he's already fought Terence McKinney and he knocked him out. Never mind. But either way, good win from Haqparast. Then we had the co-main event, Cody Brundage versus Julian Marquez. Yeah, this was everything that people thought it was going to be. It was a back and forth scrap, like so many other fights in this card where Cody Brundage TKOs him in the 1st round. Now, I do feel bad for Marquez because he was a couple seconds away from finishing Cody Brundage. Then the referee decides to cut the action to give them the mouth guards, which completely killed like all the adrenaline and all the, you know, all the pace that Julian Marquez had. But Cody Brundage got a finish in the 1st round. Another banger. The fight kicks off. Julian Marquez lands a massive shot on Cody Brundage, gets him against the cage, is about to finish him. Ref cuts the action. Cody Brundage fires back, wobbles Julian Marquez, drops him, and then goes for the ground and pound finish, and the fight is over with a massive comeback KO from Cody Brundage. I mean, I did say coming into it, I thought we'd see a bigger wrestling approach from Cody Brundage because this was like a contract saver for both of them, where the loser of this fight was probably going to get cut from the UFC, and unfortunately, that's probably going to be the case of Julian Marquez. He's probably not going to get a UFC contract anymore, but either way, yeah, this was a really good performance from Cody Brundage. Shaved his UFC career, went out there and had a scrap with Julian Marquez, and that's kind of to be expected when you've got two guys, and you look at their record, the majority of their fights, wins or losses, are stoppages, so this was a good win by Cody Brundage. And I actually think Cody Brundage is kind of underrated. He's got good wrestling. He's explosive. He hits hard. It's just, I don't know what it is. He's a basic fighter, is Cody Brundage, but he does the basics very well. That's the best way I'd use to describe him. Like, he definitely deserves to be in the UFC. He's just never going to be a top contender or one of the best, or, you know, one of these prospects of the UFC. But I think he'll be in the UFC for a while. But good performance from Cody Brundage, gets the stoppage in another banging fight. And then we had the main event. Manel Kape against Azu Almabayev. I picked Manel Kape to win by decision. He got the stoppage against Azu Almabayev. I'll take it. Yeah, Manel Kape got the TKO in the third round. I told you, man, the only reason people picked Azu Almabayev to win is because he's from Kazakhstan and he's got a good record. Let's be completely honest. You look at the guys he's beating outside the UFC, they're all tomato cans. You know what I mean? Manel Kape chases Azu Almabayev, who was running for dear life, and eventually, because he was running so much, the referee was like, fuck it, he's not trying to engage in a fight. Gets the TKO in the third round as Manel Kape and looks vintage, and I think we're starting to see a new version of Manel Kape. Since that Mohamed Mokaev fight, or should I say the Bruno Silva fight, and specifically this fight, he seems to have changed his entire style. He's got this kind of patient but snappy and elusive striking style with really good takedown defense, and I'm loving this new version of Manel Kape. I don't think he's been taken down once in his last two fights, and they've tried taking him down so many times. Give him Pantoja. In this division, the only guy who has the cape, not the only guy, but I'd say the biggest stylistic threat to Pantoja in this division is Manel Kape. It's between Manel Kape and Haqparast. I don't mind if they do KKF versus Pantoja next, but if not, Manel Kape, give him a title shot. Don't give him Brandon Moreno, where he's got a chance of losing. Don't rebook him against Brandon Royval, where he's got a chance of losing. If you genuinely want to see Pantoja in the tough fights of the 125-pound division, do Pantoja versus Manel Kape or Haqparast, or you bring Pantoja up to 135, do a massive number one contender fight in Manel Kape and Haqparast, and then the winner can face Pantoja. But either way, get him in that title picture immediately. He's definitely deserved it. Azu Almabayev couldn't take him down, was on the back foot the entire fight, and on the back foot is a bit of an understatement, to be fair. He was literally sprinting away from Manel Kape in that third round, trying to save his life until he eventually got finished. But like I said, Kape is a legitimate top contender. He's just such a fun fighter. Not fun in the sense that, you know, it's just a back and forth scrap, whereas he's leaving his heart out there, but it's fun in the sense that he's like an elusive striker who's very technical, but he's so swift with everything. Like, he's always landing the perfect shots at the perfect time. He doesn't waste any movement. He's got elite takedown defense as well. That's why I think he's a terrible matchup for Pantoja, because what does Pantoja do? You sprint at this guy with your chin up in the air, you're getting laid out cold, mate. You shoot a takedown, you ain't getting a takedown on Manel Kape. You ain't even a wrestler, mate. You're a BJJ guy who always scraps himself into the BJJ positions. That's not working against Manel Kape. Manel Kape actually is a future champion. I know when he was doing his Octagon interview after Felipe dos Santos, people were kind of memeing it, saying Manel Kape's a future champion. He actually has capability to be a champion in this division. He's so skilled. This new version of Manel Kape, I'm loving it. Gets to finish over Almabayev and does exactly what he needed to do, and he is now a star of the flyweight division. But that's my breakdown of UFC Kape versus Almabayev. It was never going to be a free UFC 300 level card. You know, there was only 10 fights. It wasn't that stacked. But you know what? They delivered most of them. The main event delivered. The main card delivered. And I'm happy with the card. Let me know your thoughts on this card and Manel Kape's performance. Thank you for watching.